Hi HipKit friends! I'm excited to be here with you today to share another layout that I have made using the September 2022 HipKits. For this layout I used mainly the main kit and the embellishment kit. So there's lots of wonderful things in both of those kits. And today I'm sharing a layout with a focus on the frames that are found in those kits. So I loved the chipboard frames, all of the colors that were included on that sheet of chipboard frames and how they coordinated with all of the pattern papers. So as soon as I saw them, I knew that I needed to make a layout featuring all of those. So I am starting by framing some of the pictures for the layout, and then you'll see me use the frames in several different ways. So the first thing is just to get them to pick the ones that fit the photos well. So that was where I started, because then the frames that were left after that, I knew I could use in lots of different ways. So I was kind of getting here the general layout, and this is a 4-photo layout, which is awesome because sometimes I can only fit 1 photo or sometimes 2 photos, but using the frames, it helps you be able to use a lot of different photos. So here I am using one of the frames to frame the patterned paper, the beautiful floral patterned paper that's in the main kit. And that will act as the base at the top. And then I'm using another frame on another floral patterned paper from that main kit on the bottom. So one of the things that I love about the embellishments in the HipKit Club is they're super sticky. So those frames have a great adhesive. So it was really virtually almost no work to frame those photos and that patterned paper. And then here what I'm doing is I'm using one of the smaller frames and just using the adhesive that was already on the frames. And I'm taking embroidery thread and going back and forth, side to side, top to bottom, and then diagonally. And I'm literally you can see what I'm doing. I'm just taking that thread and using the adhesive that's on the back of the frames to stick it to the back. And that's going to add almost like a little dream catcher type thing. But I just love the texture that this adds when you put this on a layout. So I did that with some of the pink thread that matches the patterned paper really well. And then I'm also going to do it with that little orange frame. And I kind of played around thinking I would use navy, and then I decided that was too dark. So I end up pulling out some turquoise that is just a shade darker than the turquoise or that aqua color that's in the frame and the pattern paper. So it's the same family, same tone, just a shade darker. So I'm doing the same thing side to side, top to bottom. And this is a super quick process. It would take a lot longer if you didn't have something that already had adhesive on it. So the adhesive already being on those little frames makes it super easy and quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And you can see there at the end, I do go around just with my thumb and press firmly just to make sure it's really good and stuck down to that adhesive. And then once I know where I want everything, I'm going to trace with my pencil, and this is just going to give me an idea of where the frames are going to go, so that when I go back and add some watercolor on the back, that I make sure and know where that's going to need to be added. So what I'm doing here is I am going through and just adding some glue to the top of those, or well, I guess it's to the back of them, but on top of that thread, just to make sure they're good and stuck down forever, because threads do tend to come apart later. So I wanted to make sure that they were really good and stuck down. So here what I'm using is the shimmers. I'm going to be using the shimmers Inklings and Creamies and Vibes from the color kit. So this pink color is the Bahama Mama Inklings. And for this one, it has a super great shimmer. It is hard to photograph, I will tell you, because it's so shimmery and beautiful. And it comes dry, so you just add a little water to it to activate that color and all of the beautiful tones there. And so I am just going kind of straight across the page and then down the center. So Here you can see I'm using a paintbrush, and this, now what I'm adding that orange color is just from some watercolors that I had on hand. So I do kind of a big chunk or stripe of color, and then I did add with the same inks and watercolors, I am adding just some splatters in the same tone. And then I do add the splatters. I try to add the splatters just a little bit above each row of color and below on the colors that are next to it, because that just adds a little more visual interest. I am trying to blend a little bit as I go, but I do want the colors to be pretty distinct. So I wanted kind of a rainbow of colors. And then now I'm adding the green color is the Beach Glass Vibes that was in the color kit. And it's already in, like, it's actually a spray. So I'm not using it as a spray. I'm using it almost as a watercolor. So I'm just I opened the lid, took my paintbrush and dip it in to add that color on the background for that row of color. And then the last one is going to be La Peace Dance. It's going to be the blue color, and it's a creamies. So it's a little bit more matte tone, but it does have some shimmer too, just not as much as the Inklings. And it does give a more opaque, the Inklings and the Vibes are definitely more transparent. The creamies is a pretty good coating of color, and it's kind of fun to see the different ways that those add that color on the background. So here what I'm doing is I'm just going through and lightly using a paper towel to pick up some of those splatters. I didn't want the splatters to be overwhelming on the layout. I just kind of wanted them to be a hint there. And I do let it dry just for a few seconds, and then I go through with a towel over the whole thing. I am going to go back and add one more little layer of the yellow, because the yellow seemed to be a lot lighter. Again, those were just watercolors. It wasn't the great quality of the shimmers that are in the color kit. So I did go back and add another layer of that yellow. You can see there I did dry it up a little, and now I'm ready to adhere my frames down. I actually do take that sheet off camera just now. Off camera, I took it with a heat gun just because that ink, I did use a lot of water to get it down on the paper, and so with the heat gun it did help it dry a little bit before I try to adhere something to it. So that's just a little tip. If you're using mixed media on the background, you would definitely want to make sure it's good and dry before you try to glue stuff to it. And then I do use dry adhesive just to stick it while I'm working with it. And then I did use wet glue because it's sticking on top of those colors that have a lot of shimmer and kind of a metallic finish. They are more difficult to adhere things to. So the wet glue is definitely necessary. And I do use Scotch tacky glue. So I use it in the fine liner bottle. You'll see me using it in a fine liner bottle, and then also just in the bottle that it comes in. So it just kind of depends on what I'm using it for, depending which bottle I use. So here I'm going and adding craft foam. I just use cheap craft foam from Michael's or any of your local craft stores. And you can see I did leave kind of a strip where the craft foam is not there, just because I was putting it over the chipboard frame, so I didn't want it to have a lump in it. So I am kind of working around as I'm gluing those frames on top of each other. I definitely want them to be layered and have that nice layered look on top of each other. So I'm just going and adding the craft foam where it's not layered on top of something already. Hopefully that makes sense. If I were to just put a straight piece of craft foam across the back, anywhere that it's sitting on top of something else, it would stick out and stick on top of it, or have a lump through it. So I just wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. Here I added just a little bit more glue, putting those frames down. And that one, just the little teeny tiny corner of that frame was going to overlay another one. So just cut out that little corner of craft foam. I love how all of those patterns and colors work together. The hip kits are beautifully paired to have lots of great coordinating colors. And then once I've got all of that adhered down, then I get to start doing the embellishments. This is my favorite part. So I'm going through and picking different pieces. These pieces of phrase chipboard that I'm using are from the same sheet that the frames came off of. So it's all kind of the same depth. The craft foam helps give it depth on the layout. So you'll see if the parts that are sitting on top of a chipboard frame that I have already mounted up on craft foam, I work around that. Don't put any in that section that's going to overlay it, and then put the craft foam on the other part that's not already on top of something. And I used almost that whole sheet of chipboard embellishments, the frames and then the phrases. I have a few pieces left, but most of it I used. And then my title is going to be Today. So these photos are from a sweet day at the beach with family, mostly of my daughter, and then my mom is in one of them, and then I'm in one of them. So I love those pictures. It's a total girl layout. So I wanted lots of pink and lots of pretty embellishments on there, because that's Ruby, my daughter's favorite color. And I love a layered look, so you'll see I'm stacking things on top of each other. Lots of layers. I do pick it up just to make sure I've got everything straight. You'll see me pick it up a bunch of times just to have it in front of me at eye level, to make sure that I've put on those things correctly. And you did see I did pull out a T-square ruler, so I used that several times just to make sure that everything is nice and straight. And then in this ephemera pack, there were just some cardstock frames. So I do use that frame that I just sat on top of one of the pictures. I am going to use just a piece of that. I will cut that apart. And then I love how the butterflies look here. So I do have some other layouts. One of the days at the beach on this trip, we flew kites, and my daughter had picked out a butterfly kite. So I do have, in this album, I do have lots of butterfly things because I have some beautiful pictures of her flying butterfly kites. So my son had a kite too, and I can never remember what his was because it was more like, I think it was a superhero or something. So I'd have to go back and look, but I loved the beautiful pictures of the butterfly kite high above the beach. So I kind of have that theme going in the album that this is going in. So when I saw these hip kits, I was like, oh my gosh, I love all the butterflies. So I had to have lots of those on this layout. And there's tons of little pieces and parts to choose from in these kits. So I tried lots of different things. I want to use all of them. I did use a lot. I didn't use all of them, but I did use a lot because they're so pretty. And I loved all the things that all of these little things, all the little phrases say, like, let's make today count, and looking good, and remember this, I think is what that little pink one that I just put on the frame says. So lots of sweet things, sweet phrases that apply to the memory of this week at the beach. So this is just a little tab that I added. I think it says "My Sweet Girl" to the picture of my daughter and me. And then here are some more butterflies. I'm trying to balance color around the page as I go. I love how those look. And then these the butterflies are little puffy stickers. And then there's the sheet of hearts that's just kind of to the right of the screen right there. You'll see I'm going to use those as well to layer on top of the butterflies. I try to use those little cardstock hearts everywhere. I end up taking those off and not using them. I do use the puffy hearts in several places. I think that one ends up going right there. And again, I am using craft foam to balance the layers. Just because the frames are up on craft foam, so anything that I'm having partly on a frame, I want to make sure it's all at the same level. And then each of the butterflies, I used a coordinating color of heart to put on top of each of the butterflies. And the butterflies are super cute just the way they were, but I loved how they looked with the hearts on top of them. And there is a picture of the final layout and some close-ups. If you like this video, I hope you'll go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Hip Kip channel for lots more videos. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.